Inspiration, 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 here and there. If you seek some inspiration at the moment, you may be aspiring to be something. And as you aspire, you may get so excited and eager that you breathe deeply. Speaking of breathe, anything that is connected to it is respiratory. Your nose and lungs are parts of the respiratory system, and any abnormalities inflicted on them are considered respiratory diseases. If you look at all these words closely, you may notice that what they have in common is spire, which actually came from the Latin root spirare, meaning breathe or breath. Welcome to the second episode of the Etymology series, where the story about to unfold is going to be inspiring. Before we delve into the history of spirare, I would like to offer my personal observation that the involvement of breath is barely noticeable at first glance. Besides respire, almost all words containing spire seem to have nothing to do with the act of inhaling or exhaling at all. This is particularly true when we focus on common, everyday usage as opposed to specific technical circumstances. This shift away from the literal meaning of breath might seem extreme, but it's a very common pattern in language evolution. Many English words have shifted their meaning from a literal, physical sense to a figurative, abstract sense. We saw a lot of good examples of this in my first episode on the Latin root specere, meaning to look. For example, spectacles means glasses, but respect has taken on a purely abstract meaning. If you haven't watched that episode yet, please check it out. Thank you. Where should we begin? Well, I think when we talk about history in the West, our instincts may tell us that Christianity played a vital role in potentially every aspect of life from time immemorial, from shaping people's beliefs to behaviors. I'm not a Christian though, so I have very little knowledge about the religion, but even someone like me still has heard enough about the creation of the first human on earth, namely Adam. Here's the Latin Vulgate version of Genesis 2:7. I won't read it aloud though. Please focus on this part, inspiravit. This resembles inspirare, which is a combination of a prefix in and the Latin root spirare. And as you may guess, it means to breathe in or to breathe into. And here's the translation from the New International Version. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. So it turns out that a divine breath is the very thing that makes an inanimate body literally alive. As time went on, inspirare made its way to Middle English, and while it's attested that the early usage still retained the sense of divine influence, the meaning extended to, if not superseded, the act of breathing into the human body to impart reason to a human soul. Simply put, the said breath of God bestows a purpose upon a mortal to action. That's why when you inspire someone, you are giving them the drive to do something well. Before we move on, look closely at the Latin version of Genesis 2:7 again, and notice that the word spiraculum was there too. It literally means a breathing hole, and it later became spiracle in English. After you get inspired, normally you would aspire to do or be something. The prefix at reduced to a is to. Combining the two results in aspirare, meaning to breathe to or to breathe upon. For a clearer picture, breathing upon gives you a sense of panting with desire, thus your inner drive to achieve something. The opposite of in is out, and its prefix is ex. Combining them, we have expirare, which means to breathe out. Personally, I think of it as out of breath, which is an indirect way of saying to die. The literal sense of a creature dying is now obsolete, but the figurative senses, such as a law being no longer legally acceptable or a product's shelf life coming to an end, are still common in everyday use. Now you breathe in and out, and repeat the cycle. This action of breathing again or repeatedly is captured by the prefix re, meaning again. So respirare or just respire means to breathe. Interestingly, respire as a verb is rarely used now, but respiratory is very common, especially in the medical field. Speaking of medical terms, there's another word rarely heard in everyday conversation but common in a clinical context: perspire. The word is a back formation of perspiration, which means the noun came to exist before the verb. The prefix per is through. Therefore, perspirare literally means to breathe through. However, looking at the origin this way might give a false impression because breathing in this scenario doesn't involve air, but rather human body liquid that evaporates through skin pores. And yes, that's a verbose way of saying sweating. We are not done yet with the list of words that look more intimidating than they really are, and transpire is one of them too. Trans is across or beyond, but simply taking it as breathe beyond can be somewhat awkward. So it would be helpful if we take a similar approach to perspire by thinking that the substance involved here is liquid, not air. This way, transpirare can give you a sense of emit as vapor through the surface, pass out of somebody as an exhalation. Therefore, the original meaning of transpire was to leak out, or metaphorically, to become known. At some point, this original sense produced another looser meaning to take place. Those who use transpire to mean the same thing as happen or occur often get criticized for coming across as pretentious. Despite that, this second sense has taken precedence over the first one ever since. The next word we are gonna talk about is very tricky because it is, or is not, a conspiracy. Con or com means together, so the literal meaning of conspire is to breathe together. The explanation as to why breathing together led to the collective effort to commit an evil scheme is unclear, but some speculate that it perhaps has something to do with an agreement by spoken oath. Others speculate that by blowing together into musical instruments, they would form a sound in unison. But what about conspiracy theory? How come it sounds so derogatory nowadays? While it's true that the word conspiracy has always carried a negative connotation, when coupled with the word theory, the phrase shouldn't be inherently bad, right? And the answer is yes, your intuition is correct. It did start out as a neutral term. When it first appeared in the 19th century, it was used in court cases to simply describe the argument that a specific harmful plot, a conspiracy, existed. That neutral meaning was lost around the mid-20th century, especially so after the 1963 assassination of President Kennedy, when public distrust of the government rose sharply. During that time, false rumors and stories began spreading everywhere, so the government had to step in to control the narrative. They started using the term conspiracy theory not as a neutral description anymore, but as a simple, fast way to dismiss any unwarranted belief. Now I have to make it super clear that the CIA was not the first entity who used the term to address irrational, paranoid behaviors, basically a pejorative tone. But I think it's pretty safe to say that had it not been for the CIA's strategic distribution of the phrase, it wouldn't have gained as much notoriety as it does today. Also, because of that, many came to believe that conspiracy theory had been coined by the CIA themselves. Therefore, some scholars ironically call this a meta-conspiracy theory. At this point, after seeing so many words containing spy, it would be natural to presume that the word spire itself also came from spirare. Well, surprisingly, it didn't. Without making this video too long, I will cover its root in one of my future episodes. But for now, a short explanation is spire came from a German root spear, meaning tip of a blade of grass. Having said that, even though spire wasn't a part of spirare, our spirit, in every sense, was. If I were to draw a lineage, it would look like this. Firstly, it was believed that Latin spirare's parent was space from Proto-Indo-European or pi. Then, one of spirare's derivatives, meaning new word formations, was spiritus. From there, the word journey flew Old French as spirit, and then became the Anglo-French spirit, which is identical to our current word. The Latin spiritus originally meant breath or breath of God, and then extended to animating principle in man and animals, basically a soul. However, it could also mean character, courage, or pride. The word spirit entered the English realm around the 14th century, and that is when its definitions expanded tremendously. Meanings like supernatural creatures such as angels, demons, ghosts, typical quality, mind, feelings, and even volatile substances like strong alcoholic liquor all developed from this time onwards. And that's the comprehensive list of all the words that breathe. Before we end the episode, I wanted to tell you one short story. When I was doing research for this video, I came across a Latin proverb that I really liked it and thus wanted to share with you all. And that is dam spiro spero, meaning as I breathe, I hope. So please take a deep breath, be hopeful, and live your life, for that's the spirit. Thanks for watching.